Okay, people, I don't know what's going on here, but my landlady just came by with her son. Seriously. Measured these windows out in the back. Then started talking to me about how he wants me to evict out of the basement because I told him that my son might be thinking to move out, right? And he goes, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to find a guy, so some quiet person to just stay down there and rent, right? They're telling me I need to empty out the whole basement, people, so that they can rent it out to somebody else. Because they want $3,000 a month for this place. I'm already paying $1,950. Okay? Right? And that if I don't do that, they're going to give me an eviction notice. Her son was accusing me of being a hoarder. Right? Told me I needed to get rid of my shit. That it was all about fucking business. And that I said, well, it's not that simple. I spent all this money on food so that I could make sure that I could pay my rent. No matter what my kids were fucking doing. Right? Okay? I'm already prepared to have a stranger move into the basement. Right? Right? Just so that I could pay my rent. I don't have to worry about food. Okay? I got that base fucking covered. Right? He's telling me that's not good enough. He wants $3,000 at least for this house. In other words, take out everything so that they can rent out the basement for themselves. I can continue to live here, obviously work in the yard and kill myself, but of course they don't acknowledge that. And of course the yard is looking really gray right now. Nothing's blooming. Everything's dark and gloomy and it's been scattered around. And, I've been in the kitchen, people. Like, seriously, people. And this guy is calling me fucking down. I told him that, there's illegal. I already lost 2 daughters in this house, right? There's illegal organ harvesting going on. It was a fucking Punjabi who harvested my daughter's organs, right? And that the Punjabi community doesn't give a shit because I can't get a fucking lawyer, right? And now you're telling me that you want me to get the hell out of here. And I got, like, what the fuck? Where am I going, people? And he says, well, you can't find a place like this. You're taking advantage of my parents. I said, no, I'm not. I said, the deal was, your dad said, stay as long as you want, take the house now, we'll never raise the rent. Okay, you've been raising the rent now, from $1,500 when I first moved in to $1,950. Okay, I expect her to come and ask me for another $50 fucking dollars. Will be $2,000 very soon, right? But that's not good enough. They want $4,000, but they're willing to cut the slack if I empty out the fucking basement so they can make another fucking $1,000, rent it out to fucking strangers, as whatever I've got down there for food fucking storage just gets thrown out because I'm just hoarding. And of course I'll be working in the yard and it will never be enough. Right? Going blind. And then, because I'm kind of standing up a little bit for myself, he's telling me he's going to give me an eviction notice tomorrow. And I said, well, you go ahead and you do that, and you can have the fucking sheriff come in, take my shit and throw it out in the fucking road. Because basically, I've got no place to fucking go, people. So that they can renovate. Because I said, that's what you're doing. You're renovating. Right? You sell this house, you're going to make $2 million fucking dollars on this place. My back door, I struggle with it all the time. Okay? You see what happens with the flooding. Renovate? Why not just drain out? Why not just snake the fucking drain out there in the back? Plumber already told me I have to do it once a year. Anyway. So he says, well, you're dealing with me now. I looked at my landlady. I said, what is going on? Like, what did you do? Oh, well, we can't deal with it. He's doing it. We signed it over to him. I looked at him, I said, so what, you're my landlord now? He goes, yeah. Get the fuck out of the basement, because if you don't, we're going to give you an eviction notice. Okay, and get rid of my shit up here. Right? But, just keep working in the yard and pay rent. Right? And you can stay. As long as we can get $3,000 a month for this house. For now. Until they sell it. Calling me a victim. That I'm a fucking victim here. Oh, you're always crying on about you being a victim. I said, oh, okay. He told me he's going to come with a bin. Because I said, what, you're going to call the sheriff and have my stuff all put out in the road? And being that he's Punjabi, and they're good at what they fucking do, they just get a bin, people. And they come in, they lock you out, and then they come in, and they just throw everything in the fucking bin. And that's it. Your life is over. Okay? That's what I have for a landlord now. And then we wonder why there's illegal organ harvesting happening in the province of British Columbia, Canada. Because that's how families get destroyed. And being that they fucking get destroyed little at a time and get mistreated like this, okay? Lots of them just fall through the cracks. And those are the ones that are easy to pick off. Told me to go take it to the cops. I said, what part of that don't you understand? The cops are involved. They facilitate it, people. And this guy's just speeding up the process. That's all he's doing. He's just enabling it to happen, people. This guy is mean. I can't empty out the basement, people. I spent 15 fucking grand on fucking food this year. Just so I could keep up with the rent no matter what was happening with my kids. I was thinking about my landlords. And this is what my landlords do. Telling me that I'm sitting high on the horse, taking advantage of his landlords. Okay. I'm just trying to survive, people. But Canada is a shithole freaking country. Okay. So now you can see what's going on here. Same day. It's going on 20 to 9. What is it? January 27, 2022, and I'm still pissed off. So, can you see? Where am I? Wandering eye. There it is. Okay. So, it's like a soup. I don't know what it tastes like. We'll taste it right now. It's mild. It's not extremely strong. But it kind of tastes like, well, you can definitely taste the tomato for what it's worth. You can still taste that cilantro. And it wasn't very much. I can't say you can taste the carrots because I don't taste the carrots per se, because the tomato is the dominant flavor. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open this up. I'm going to put it in here first, and then I'm going to taste it just because it's in a can, right? I don't want it tinny tasting. It shouldn't be. It's fine. And I will probably put in a little bit more Worcestershire sauce and probably some salt. So hold on. Okay. So what I did is I put in a half a cup of lemon, and it brought up the tart just a little bit. Okay, now you have to remember this is going in the pressure canner because there's vegetable. It's all vegetable. Right? But I just put the lemon juice in there anyway. Okay? It's tasting kind of like a tomato juice already, as is, people, or like a soup. I noticed that the lemon did bring up the tartness a little bit, just a little bit, not a lot. I put a little bit extra salt in there, and a little extra Worcestershire sauce. Lemon, just like I said, added just a bit more tart. Now I'm going to put this in there. Hold on. Yeah, and if you look at it, okay, you can see the fibers in there. This was just a little thicker, but not packed. So what's going to happen is when I put this in there, it's going to make it more, you know. All right, so I got everything into one pot. You can see it's full, right? Now, that's a really big pot, people. Okay. Kind of thick for juice, but it would be more like a soup. Carrot tomato soup. You could almost say that's what it would be. Okay, but I would think that it's runny enough that it should can fine. And not only that, there's no flour, none of that kind of stuff in there. There's no milk, nothing. Okay. So now that I put that in there, stirred it around a bit, I'm starting to heat it up. Right, I'm going to taste it, see if that tomato juice made a difference. Well, now I know that being that I put lemon in there, I can tell, right? Not that it's overwhelming, because it's not. I'm mad right now. That's the problem. And I don't want to be here, and I don't want to do this. But I have to finish it. So that means I have to bring out my canner, wash my jars, 7 at a time. That's more than 7 jars. That's a double batch there, people. Right. And I'm pressure canning, so in quart-sized jars. So you're looking at probably 40 minutes, if not more. I'd have to double check on everything. Right, because we're doing vegetables here. We're not doing fruit juice. So you take it to the vegetable that takes the most time. So whether it's the celery, whether it's the pepper, whether it's the carrot, whether it's the onion. So I'd have to do a quick boo on everything. Or just cap it off. I don't know. I'm going to have to just Google online canning 1 quart carrot, 1 quart onion, 1 quart green pepper, and 1 quart basically celery, right? Because those are your major ones, right? And tomatoes. And then you take the one that's the highest. I was looking for my books. If I had my books handy, it would be easy enough to find it, but I don't know where they are. I moved them off. I've been moving things around. And I put them someplace else, and I haven't been using them. I've been using Google. Just because, just for times, right? So, I don't know. Will I do it again? For a quarter box of carrots? No. It's more simpler just to dehydrate them. That other one, I had them on high, and they're almost dry now. So that's good. I mean, I could take some of this put it in there, open up that other can, see what's going on with it, and then just add in a bit more tomato juice between the two of them, just to bring it to a more juice state versus, because this is almost like a cream soup, only there's no cream in there. You could add the cream in after the fact. Or you can cook your rice in this, right? I don't know if you'd want to drink it like this. And even then, because it's a vegetable and it was home canned, I'd still recommend boiling it first and then letting it cool, then putting it in your fridge, then drinking it. Only because it's a vegetable, right? So, anyway. Okay, so it's 1 minute to midnight now, as you can see. So that's it. Now, I'm going to do, I think my can will fit 7 jars. Alright. Where am I? Yeah, I think my can will fit 7 jars. Okay. So, I just did a quick sweep online there in terms of the way I do things when I do stuff like this. I take the time for the one that requires the most time in terms of processing. Now, if there was meat in here, it'd be 75 minutes. But there's no meat. So I don't have to do that for 75 minutes. It wouldn't matter what kind of vegetable was inside because there was meat. Okay? But because there's no meat in here, I go with the vegetable that requires the most time. And the way it's looking is about 40 minutes. Tomatoes in a pressure canner is 10 minutes. Because you can do tomatoes in a water bath. But that's 40 minutes for a quart. Okay? I'm using the pressure canner, so technically you'd only have to do it for 10 minutes. Carrots for a quart is 30 minutes. But I have one bell pepper in there. Okay? So that would be 35 minutes. So we know we're at 35 minutes right now because of that one pepper. Okay? However, onions, I came across 3 articles. One said 75 minutes for a quart, but then, I don't know, it was some kind of recipe. And they were doing whole onions. So, and then I looked up 2 more because that's a lot just for onions. Right? And the other one said 40 minutes for onions. So I'm going to do 40 minutes. So now, onions are the ones that seem to be the most. Okay? In terms of time. Right? Celery, well, I guess in the old days, in the cookbook, right? From Ball, the one that does the jars and stuff, right? They had it where you could can celery just by itself, right? And they had that at 35 minutes, but then they removed it out of their book years later, saying that they hadn't tested it, right? So then I looked at other recipes, and it said 40 minutes. Now I like celery in my chicken soups and stuff like that. But don't forget, there's chicken in there. So I'm processing it 75 minutes. So that compensates for the whether it's 40 minutes or 35 minutes. So it looks like the standard is about 40 minutes, between 35 and 40 minutes for a quart-sized jar. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 40 minutes, at least. I might do 45, but probably not. Okay? And that would be more than enough. Because those are the main ingredients, right? Okay? A little cilantro isn't going to be anything too drastic here, right? It looks like this is going to be more than 12 jars. This is my first batch, and it's already midnight. Do you see what I'm saying? People are like, why do I even waste my fucking time here? Serious. It's not like I get any love for this stuff. Right? It's not fresh. Or they're just being picky. I'm glad I did it, though, because I know I'll use it someday for something. And it was worth a shot. You don't know until you try, right? It's something that you can work with. And because it's not real strong in taste, you can add things into it later to adjust to whatever it is that you want to do at the time when you're cooking with it. Or if you want to drink it. Like if I was to drink this, I'd open up a jar, and because it's a vegetable, I'd heat it up, right? Do that 10-minute little low boil with a lid on it, cool it down. I'd put it in the fridge, get it really nice and cold. And then I would add in some more Worcestershire sauce, perhaps some more salt, because I like salt, right? And that's probably all I would need, because this, and you could also add in an extra juice just to thin it out a little bit if you wanted to, right? Because this is getting into like a cream soup. To make cream soup, you know how easy it would be to make a nice cream soup with this? Oh, it would be so easy. Open up a jar, put it into your pot, heat it up, cook it for your 10 minutes, get some butter or whatever in a pot, melt it, throw in your flour, stir it around, mix it up with a little bit of milk. You know how to do it. And then incorporate some of this into the pot, mix it around so it doesn't clump, and then pour it into your soup, and you have a beautiful cream tomato carrot soup. Like, it's that simple. That I could see myself doing more than once with this. So canning up 12, 15, 16 jars will be worth it. Definitely worth it. But I'm not doing it again because that's a lot of jars. I'm just going to dehydrate what's left. Although I might can a couple of jars just of shredded carrots in general. Just that and nothing else. Which would be 40 minutes. Okay? Okay, because you can frozen food. We'll see how many jars I get out of this. It'll be 12 for sure. Right? Because I'm down to half a pot now. So that's good. So I have to do this twice before I can go to sleep. Which will be about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. To get up and start again with the meat tomorrow. As I continue to dehydrate. And this is what my kids, they don't get it. They don't fucking get it. Right? Like, they just don't get it. But whatever. Now, I'm not bringing this to a 1/4-inch headspace because it's going to be in there for 40 minutes. Right? I'm going to just leave it at about, it's almost an inch. It's almost an inch. I'm going to leave them at an inch. I can't remember what I do when I do stock. If you do a meat stock, just the broth, nothing but the broth, no meat inside, you do that only for like 20 minutes in a pressure canner. Big difference between 20 minutes without meat compared to 75 minutes with me. You can celery. I would never can it in a jar, just celery by itself. I mean, that's, to me, it doesn't make any sense. But definitely, I like chunks of celery in my chicken soups and those types of things if I can them in a jar. Oh, it's so good. So, so good. But then that's just a few pieces here and there, right? It's anything too major. So there we go. Look at that. This is, you know what? I'm looking forward to having this as a cream soup. Okay? Seriously, like, you don't know. Like, this is actually quite tasty. And I'm down to a half a pot, so I have to do this twice. And I'm tired and I'm cranky, but that's okay. It'll be really, really nice as a soup with the cream in it. And if you wanted it as a drink, it's almost like, you know, clamato juice. It's kind of leaning more towards a clamato juice. Not quite, not the kind that you buy in the store, but almost similar. If I had to place it, I wouldn't say it's a V8, but more like a clamato, which you can add in more Worcestershire. You can take another juice and mix the two together in terms of like a tomato juice to make it more like tomato-y if you wanted it that way. When I added in the lemon, it changed the taste, but it didn't overwhelm the flavor. Okay, so you see, this is where I start getting dizzy now, because I've been going like all day. All day. Alright? But, you know, it's not every day a whole bunch of carrots fall into your lap. So anyway, I got myself some extra trays here because I, what do you call it? Getting tired now. Gotta make sure I don't put these on too tight. I move things around. So, after I get these in the canner and get things going, I'm going to get this little one going with the 4 trays. That's all I have on that one for now. And fill up my other trays. Get them on a dehydrator so that just keep plugging at it. And then tomorrow, more than likely, I'll pull out my other dehydrator, because this time around, as they were dehydrating, for whatever reason, I could smell them, and I didn't, and I ate it, I tasted it, it was fine. I just didn't like the smell. Yeah. I need to spread them out just a little more. First time was fine. I used same box, same size, same trays. I didn't get that issue, but maybe these ones were more frozen. Well, which actually they were. The second batch where they were a little bit more frozen than the first batch. Alright, because I'm rushing. So I have to move up all this stuff out of here now. But, you know, hard to see. I'm getting dizzy because I'm tired. Alright. Trying not to feel sorry for myself. Alright. Making way here. I'm heating up the canner. You can't take hot jars and put them in cold water. No. Crack. So now they're okay. So we get these in the canner now. This is our first batch. Next, that was less than half. So I'll probably get another 5 or 6 more jars. So maybe I might only get 11 jars, which will be fine. I'm happy. And then, like I said, I'll probably can a few jars of just straight up carrot, nothing but carrot, which is 40 minutes. Right? Should be fine. And oh boy, that's a lot of water in there. Seems to be kind of a lot. I don't know what I did there. The water rose right up to the rims. So maybe I should take out some water. That's a little high. I don't know if I can do that though. You don't need that much water in a pressure canner like this with a gauge. Boy, oh boy. Moving like a snail. This is not an easy kitchen to work in. Right? Oh God. It was more than, I stick my finger in. Normally it's about 3 inches. I was kind of up there. I was up at 4 inches, that's why. And these are full. So. Okay, it's right at the rim where the thing is there. And before this gets too hot, you have to put on your lid. Because if it gets too hot, I find it gets weird. Before it gets too hot in there, you want to put your lid on fast and lock it up fast. Because otherwise, the heat just, and if you can't, then you can't close it, right? So there, now we're good. So now it's 12:30. And this will be done at about 10 after 1 or something like that. And then you have to let it cool. And even when everything drops, you don't want to open it right away. Because with liquid, you get a vortex going in there. And if you think that you can open up your pressure canner right away, that vortex just keeps going around and around and pushing everything out, right? Okay? So you got to give it just a little longer just for it to calm down in there. Right? Before you take out your jars. Otherwise, you're just going to get a lot of siphoning going on in there. That's what I've discovered. Okay, so I'll be back. Okay, so I'm not no expert with the pressure canner, but anyway, when you start counting your 10 minutes, right, to vent, okay, this is called venting. You have to vent for 10 minutes at top speed. It's when this little thing pops up. When this little thing pops up, that's when that really takes off. Okay, so that's when you start your 10 minutes of venting. So now you just let it run for 10 minutes and you vent. And then you come and you put this on, right? And you watch your gauge. Okay, and then once it gets past 10 on there, that's when you start counting your time. Okay? And then you're going to have to turn down your knob. Alright? The thing that I like about this is you can run this canner between, well, I've gone as low as 1. You have to adjust it between 1 and 4 off and on for the duration of whatever it is that you're doing, because your little gauge is going to change, right? If it gets to 15, this little thing will start to rock. That lets you know. But you see, I don't leave this on its own because I'm tired and shit and I'll forget. So if I hear this rattling, it's because I'm not paying attention. Boy, oh boy, I get to it fast. And I adjust the knob. Okay? But once it gets past 10, you put that on, okay? And then you're gonna watch. You have to start turning this down, okay? Because otherwise, you know, it could be dangerous. So we got 8 more minutes. Okay, so I'm doing this kind of for Lucy. She's thinking about getting herself a pressure canner, and I know how intimidating it can feel if you've never really used one before. I don't know if she's ever used one, but she says I'm a motivator, so I appreciate the moral support too, okay? So I'm just kind of doing this so that when she's up and ready to go, right, she has a little bit of mentorship. Uncle John used to say, don't worry. So don't worry, Lucy. It's spitting, it's hissing, it's rocking, it's rolling, right? This buzzer's gonna go off in 5 seconds. So here we go. Okay, now this is when you take this and you put that on there. You turn off your timer, right? Oh my God, it's 1:45 in the morning, people. This is what I mean. I used to do this shit till 6 o'clock in the morning. That meat that my son's eating, I'd be up till 6 o'clock in the morning doing this crap. Now, do you see? From like 2014, 15, that kind of thing, right? You see what's happening? Now, once it gets past 10 onto 11 or so, that's when you start your timer for 40 minutes. We've already determined that 40 minutes is a good number in light of the types of vegetables they're in here, okay? And you have to start turning down your heat on the stove itself. Otherwise, it's just going to keep on going. And if you get past 15, it starts getting scary. Okay, so it's rising pretty fast, you can see, right? I'm boiling myself some water. I'll make myself a coffee. And then basically what I do is I kind of stand on my feet for about 40 minutes, keeping an eye on this, and I keep adjusting the temperature, right? It goes between, oh, I don't know, 12 and a half, 13 to 11, right? I try and keep it in between that, because if it goes below 10, you have to start all over again. You gotta turn off the canner, right? Vent it, start your time like as if you were from the beginning. So I can't do that. I don't want to do that. So I just stand here and on guard, on my feet. So this is round 1. Do you see how much is left? That's less than half a pot. So that's what? Maybe anywhere from 4 to 5 jars, right? So that'll be good. And I'll have to do it again. But I can do carrots tomorrow. I can do carrots before I do the meat, right? Because the meat is 75 minutes in a pint-sized jar. I think it's 90 minutes in a quart. I probably won't do quarts though. I like to do pints. Pints are suffice to me, right? It spreads out the meals, right? A pint is good for Amari, Andre, and myself, and we usually have a little extra left over for the next day, right? We're a pint, my son can eat 2 of them at one time. He's a big guy and he's a tree cutter, so, you know. But I asked him just to eat 1 pint at a time because, you know, it takes time to do this stuff, costs money, right? I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on this shit, people. So if it's given to me for free, trust me, I'm very grateful to have it, okay? I'm not trying to be wasteful with it. So we're getting close now. Pretty soon we can turn on our timer. Okay? Once it gets past 10, pushing into 11, that's when you turn on your timer. Okay? But then that's also when you're going to have to start lowering your heat. And with a pressure gauge, you can lower it as low as 3, and it will hover depending on what's inside of the jar. Or I'm sorry, depending on what's inside of the canner, it will hover between 1 and 4. And you just have to keep adjusting it. Otherwise, it's going to rise to 15 real freaking fast. Right? And you don't want to jump start your heart. Okay, so we're getting close. So now we're going to start getting the timer ready. Right? Okay, so now we're safe. Okay. Put it on 40 minutes. There we go. Okay, I'm at 40 minutes. Right? So now we can just give it a few seconds. You don't want to turn it down too fast because otherwise it will drop too fast. But you can slowly now start turning it down because you want to kind of keep it around that area there, right? It's hot. I'm sweating here. Ooh. Okay, now you see it's rising. I've got it now on 7. You see how it's rising? So before it rises too fast, right, you can see it's still rising. So now I'm going to bring it down to 5. Okay? Right? We don't want it to drop too fast, so we kind of want to keep the heat there, right? But then we don't want it rising too fast either. So once, you see now you can hear the bubbles, they're slowing down in there. Alright, things are slowing down. This will only rock if it's coming into 15, so don't expect that to rock because you've got the gauge, right? So now I'm going to just bring it down to 4, okay? And keep it at that now for a little while, right? I like to keep it a little past 11 because for me, between 10 and 11 is too hard to just kind of keep a handle on it. So once the heat balances itself out, you'll see whether it drops or whether, you know, it depends on what's in the jar in terms of the numbers of, it depends on what's inside the canner, right, in terms of what type of jars you have in there with what type of food, as well as how many jars, okay? And I've had this thing stacked, double stacked, okay, with pint size and half pints, right? So you can double stack this one, right? Okay, so you can see it's dropped a little bit on 4, right? Because the jars are very dense. So before it drops too much, I'm going to bring it back up to a 5. Do you see how that's moving around in there like that? Right? Because of the density of what's inside jars, and it's a full canner in terms of quarts. So before it gets too close to 10, I'd rather keep it there, right? Or at 13. Okay? That's how I do it. So I'm going to turn off this camera now, and I'm going to work on doing that. I brought another box in, but they're still kind of frozen, so I'm wondering if, because the last time I did that in the dehydrator, they were kind of frozen this morning when I put them in, just slightly frozen versus being more unthawed than like the first batch. So I'm just giving them a few minutes to unthaw a little bit more before I put them on their tray. So, do you see what's going on there? Does it look like it's dropping? And if it is, like I said, just turn it up. Now we're on 5. Just, right? It's dropping because of the density inside the jar. But you're still safe though, because it's not below 10. If it drops too far, then that's it. You have to turn it off, revent, do everything. You have to let it cool down. Take that off after this drops. This has to drop before you can take that off. Okay, so that's why you don't want to be messing around with this. So I'm going to put it back on 6 because it's dropping. I can still see it's dropping. And that's obviously because those jars are full, right? So they're sucking up the heat. Okay, that's what's happening here, right? Okay. So that's why I recommend you stand here, even if it kills you, 40 minutes. Right? Because it's sensitive, you know? And you don't want to have to do it over again. And you sure in the hell don't want to get distracted and do something and hear this little thing rattling. Come here and find out that it's at freaking 18. That would scare the life off of you, right? So yeah, now I've got it on 4. So I went from 6 to 4. Okay? I'm going to stand here and we'll see how it reacts. Sometimes you can get it level, like stabled out for I don't know, 5, 10, 15 minutes maybe. And then it will either drop or it will increase. At this point, where we're at in terms of we've only gone through 9 minutes. As the pressure changes in the canner and it gets hotter and hotter, obviously this is going to go up. So this is where at some point through the process, okay, maybe in about 15 minutes, right? Because it depends. I just put it on 4. Sometimes I have to go as low as 1 in order to stop it from keep going, right? And again, it all depends what's inside the canner and how dense the food is and how many jars and just all of it, right? So I really just recommend hovering around your canner when you do this. Okay, so first batch is done in 12 seconds. So what happens now when your timer goes off, obviously you turn off the stove and then you can relax, okay? You have to get past your fear, right? Otherwise, you'll never get anything done. So now it's 1:30 in the morning. So now we turn off the stove and we just leave it. And it's going to take a little while for everything to drop. But you don't take this off until this drops. Okay? Just remember that. That's really, really important. I think I tried that once before and it's not cool. Okay? Just don't do it. You're not supposed to do that because there's pressure in this. When this drops, that tells you that the pressure, I mean, obviously that has to go to 0, but this might not drop right away. Okay? So even if that's at 0, don't take that off until this is down. Now, because this is technically a liquid, there's no food in it. What happens is when you use a pressure canner, like with broth, you're going to get a vortex. Same thing with juice if you boil the shit out of it. That's why I like to do 190. It works nice. You don't lose nothing at 190. Your jars come out nicely sealed. Everything's pasteurized. You're good to go. In a situation like this, though, what's happening in the canner, especially as it's cooling, you've got this vortex going. It's like a little tornado. And what it does is it pops the jar and closes the jar, pops the jar and closes the jar as it spins. Right? So even if this drops and you take that off, and within a few minutes because you want to see, you open up your canner and you pull out your jars, you're going to find them spinning, popping and closing and popping and closing, and that's where you're going to get a lot of leakage. So in this situation, I don't know if it's going to do that so much with the type of broth, I guess vegetable broth, I don't know what you want to call it, right? Because it's a little more dense, so maybe it's not going to be so apt to spin around. But, you know, it's what I'm trying to say is even though that drops, sure, you can take that off, but I wouldn't open up the canner for about 10-15 minutes. Let it do its thing inside the canner, because as soon as you introduce hot air to ambient air, which is going to be colder than what's inside the canner, it just seems to agitate that process and make it worse. And that's what I think. Okay? You know, because you don't want things leaching out, right? So just give it a little time before you open it up. It will still do that inside the canner, but not maybe so vigorously as if you were to bring it out, because it's, you know, it just, from hot to cold, right? It changes things. So now we just let it relax. Gets to 0. Sooner or later this will drop. Then you take that off. But I'm going to leave it for another 10-15 minutes before I open up the canner to bring out the jars. Okay, so next day, I went to sleep at like 3:30 in the morning. Turned this off, now I got it back on. I added a bit more water. Right now, if it would have been a meat stock, I would have left it on low all night. But because it was a vegetable, I just turned it off with the lid on. And then now I'm heating it back up. I'll bring it to a boil before I'm ready to put it into a jar, but I'm just heating it up slowly, right? Because I'm, gathering up everything here. I got another 7 more jars, although I don't think I'm going to get 7 jars out of this, maybe 4 or 5. Right? I had to add just a little bit more water because it thickened up, but that's good. Okay? It tastes good, right? And this is what I did last night, so I'm pretty impressed with these. I got this dehydrator going and the other dehydrator going. I don't have time to pull out the other dehydrator, and I don't really know where I'm going to put it, but besides that point, I've decided that I'm going to can at least one canner full. I don't really want to use the quart-sized jars, although it will go faster if I just do 7 quarts of the shredded carrots with boiled water and a bit of salt. Okay, so I'm really considering to do either 7 quarts or a canner full of what is that called? 500 mil. Maybe I'll do 7 quarts and 7 500 mil, and that will take care of almost the whole box, right? And then I'm down to, I don't know, 2 boxes left or something like that. I just brought a box in right now. You can see it right there. Okay, so, what am I saying? Okay, so, and then once I get these in the canner, what I'll probably do is work on, after they're out, right? Work on, I'm in the kitchen, right? Work on getting ready to do, a batch of shredded carrots, because that's only, 30 minutes if it's a half pint, 40 minutes if it's a quart, right? And as I'm doing that and getting that, and they're in the canner and they're going, because you have to keep an eye on the gauge, right? That's when I'll put the chicken in the oven, spice it up a little bit. I'm going to half bake it, okay? Just half cook it, that's all. I like to do that. And half cook it, obviously debone it, jar them up in 500 mils, and then I'll be canning those for 75 minutes. And then those bones will go into that pot to make stock, which technically I would like to have to put in with my chicken, but I might just end up using water and whatever broth is accumulated at the bottom of the pan for those jars, right? Okay, so that's the plan stand for the day. Okay, so I've been stewing it for a bit, right? And I had to add in a bit more water. So now I'm just going to bring it to a quick boil. And once it's boiling, this is a good consistency. Wandering eye, sorry. You can see, okay? Right? And I'll put it in the jars. We'll see how many jars this get me. Anywhere between 4 to 7. We'll see. Probably about 5. Okay? And I'm putting them in the canner, 40 minutes. And then I'll probably do 7 jars of just shredded carrots. So I'll get them in the jars, get them ready. So as soon as this is done, then I'll put them in. And as they're going, then I'll get into the chicken. And I just did a big bowl of the carrots that I'm going to grind up. They're already dehydrated. And then I'm going to put them back in the dehydrator and dry them for a little longer. Right, but I still got a couple of more boxes to go, so hold on. Okay, so I got 3.5 quarts, right? See? Less jars, it heats up faster. So this is why you gotta just stay here. Also, too, whatever the temperature is in your house, if it's really, really cold or really, really hot, or it all plays a role in how this will react, right? I just put that on there, and you can see it's rising really fast. And honestly, I'm not even at full max there, so, you know, it's really important that you stand by the canner when you do this. So I've got 7 jars. What I'm doing right now is I'm rinsing these because I'm going to put them in the jars, right? And as I'm dehydrating them, the first batch turned out pretty good. The second batch, I put it on high, and I forgot about it, so I kind of cooked them, right, as I was supposedly supposed to be dehydrating them, right? So anyway, it started to give off a little bit of a smell, like a dehydrating smell. So, I mean, they'll be fine. I'm going to grind those ones up into powder and continue dehydrating just as a backup, just because you want to powder up and then dehydrate a bit more, right? And this woman's loud, man. I'm just listening as I'm working here. Anyway, there we go. So see how fast that went? That went really, really fast, okay? And because there's less jars in there, chances are I might have to bring this down to, what is it called? Down to a 1 or a 2 at some point, right? Because it doesn't retain the heat. Oh boy. Okay. We'll put it at 40 minutes. We're good. All right. Now, as soon as it starts moving, now we're at 40 minutes. Okay. And now we start turning it down, right? Because it's rising fast because there's less jars in there. Okay. Balance it out. I'm getting these jars ready, right? Look at that. See? I'm at 3 now, and it's still rising. Do you see that? So don't get panicky. Just turn it down, okay? It cools down really fast, even if you have to bring it down to 1. Okay? When it's rising up like that, rising and it keeps rising, don't get scared. Just bring it right down to minimum if you have to. Okay? Do you see how it keeps going? Because there's less jars in there. Right? But once you basically turn off your canner, the pressure starts to go down very fast. So even if it means, can you see where I'm at right now? Okay? Alright? I want to turn it right on to minimum because it looks like it's still rising. And that's because there's less jars in there. Right? Can you see that? So, as long as you don't go below 10, you're fine. Now, with it on minimum, it should slowly but surely start to go backwards, right? You have to stand here and keep an eye on it. It's kind of like a little roller coaster that kind of gets your heart beating, right? But this is where you have to get past that fear and have a heart of steel, right? Okay, so now you can see it's starting to drop, but if you leave it on there for any length of time, it's going to go below 10. So now you're going to, once it gets a little closer, right, to there, to 11, then you have to start bringing up the heat again. Okay? And in this situation, we might be between 2 and 4 because there's less jars in the canner itself. Okay? Plus the temperature in the house with the doors open is colder. Right? My hands are cold. But then I'm working with half-frozen carrots and cold water. So, but my hands are always cold. Like always. I'm always in the water with cold hands. There, you see? Now it's starting to drop. Okay? So before it drops too much, put it back on maybe 3, 2.5. Bring it to 2.5. Otherwise, it's going to keep dropping real fast. So you have to find that balance. Okay? And then try and hold it, right? So, this temperature is okay, right? All right. Okay, so, right, this is like the tops of the carrots and stuff like that kind of stuff, eh? But because I'm canning this stuff, you want to take a little more care. Now, the first couple of batches that I dehydrated, I didn't do this, but for the rest of the boxes, as I continue dehydrating, because this is all I'm canning, right, in terms of carrots. The rest is all dehydrated. I will rinse them off, and I will go through them, and I will take out that stuff, right, because I'm pretty sure these things were blanched. And this stuff would be, you know, at the top of the carrot or something like that, right? So I'm not too worried about it, right? But in terms of canning them like this, after those mandarin oranges, I'm not in the mood. So I'm going to try and get as many out as I can see for myself, because I can't see them all, people. It's very dark for me. I'm just taking out what I can see, and then I'll have Andre come in and use his eagle eye and before I jar them up, right? And they're still kind of frozen. Oh, my fingers are so sore. They're so cold right now. Right? I'm just letting them unthaw a bit more before I put them in the jars, because cold to hot will crack the jar, right? So, and I've got time. Oh boy. See? I'm having to go up and down, up and down, up and down. Andre is my eyes. He's got eagle eyes. He sees eagles up high, high, high in the sky. Yeah, he spots them all the time. And he's always keeping an eye open for my glasses. And if I misplace something in my kitchen, he helps me find it. All right. You're just double checking. So now for the rest of the boxes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to rinse them off and go through this crap, and before I put them on a dehydrator tray, right? Okay. I had too many boxes to be fussing with it, you know, right? I didn't know how long they were going to stay frozen for, so they're still a little too icy to put in jars. But we got one more pot to do for 7 jars, because I'm doing 7 jars. What's that? Yeah, I know, they keep showing up, don't they?
He's doing it for nothing, but I'm gonna show him how to play.
But you got eagle eyes.
I'm gonna use them for content. When the Fed's kicking that damn dog.
You know, people, if I was to do lives in the amount that these people do lives, I'd probably roll in a lot of fucking dough here, you know? Like, serious, could you imagine if I was doing a live right now, right? And just talking smack, just talking, just to be fucking talking, right? I'd be like, bling, 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 okay? But I'm like too busy. I don't got time to be hooking up lives and doing all that shit, right? My brain doesn't, it's foggy, it doesn't work like it used to. But in the meantime, can you see, right? Where am I? Okay? It has to get to 0. But even if it gets to 0, if this little thing is up, don't take that off, because there's still pressure in the canner. Okay? This has to go to 0. This has to drop. Once that drops, give it a couple of minutes, then take that off. And I wouldn't recommend, especially if there's liquid in there, because you've got that vortex spinning around, right? You know, let it cool down even a little more before you take off the lid, right? Okay, so now I'm listening to Alex Jones here for a second.
We will resist it. We will say no.
Picking through this stuff here, right?
Why do they put biological males in women's sports
what do you call
and let them dominate every level of it?
Let's see what we can do here. I just want to address the trucker situation here for a second.
Ass backwards, and that is that big
whatever's going on here in Canada with these truckers,
and now Disney announced
the trucker union that's in partnership with the government, because the union bosses of the union, regardless of the union, doesn't necessarily speak on behalf of the whole union. Okay? You know, they're stakeholders in something, right? So what I'm trying to say is this continental food shortage that we're experiencing throughout the continent sporadically, right? Started long before whatever is going on with the truckers in Ottawa today. Okay? The Trucker Union Association or whatever can't blame the truckers that are protesting for food shortage. Because whatever is causing food shortage has nothing to do with them. All right?
It's sick.
And as they're firing the union, the Trucker Association union head bosses through their mandates, firing longtime truckers because they don't want to submit to an experimental analog. They're just going to follow suit with what our governments have been doing in Canada in terms of importing immigrants to replace the Canadian-born people. As those people, the Canadian-born people, to which a majority of them are Caucasian, are coming into a baby boom age where there's going to be 15 years of baby boomers going into the healthcare system with the most amount of wealth, okay, in terms of their generation, and they're being medically kidnapped for their assets.
So now he'll pay.
Does that mean that every baby boomer is being medically kidnapped? Well, no, because that would be too obvious, right? But they pick off the ones that they think they can pick off, all right? And they do. They use immigrants to do it. As the senior staff, the senior union staff, dictate to the immigrants what to do, how to do it, right? As they're now firing long-term employees through various sectors, blaming the employees for the crisis in this sector, and this sector, when ultimately is bad governance. Because there's something else going on behind the scenes. Just like some of these individuals that purport themselves to be human are not. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to say. Whatever the truckers are doing in Ottawa, if the food shortage gets worse, it has nothing to do with them. Because the food shortage was, and whatever else shortage is going on, started before this happened. So I just want to remind people of that. Okay, and Canada is famous to have their senior union staff within their unions, their associations, whatever fucking association they're attached themselves to. And they're bought off and paid for through their stakeholders in terms of they don't necessarily represent the union as they do the stakeholder. And that's why they're willing to fire all these individuals that drive trucks to replace them with immigrants that more than likely will come into Canada biased, bigots, and prejudiced, and racists. And all you have to do is go to the healthcare system to see it in the fucking real time as to what's happening with the Canadian-born people once they get into the healthcare system. Uncle John is leading the pack on that one.
Using the UN to
2015.
to then transfer it to
the fight isn't over yet.
This is all going to get drilled. Just not by us.
Right?
All that shale oil.
Just wanted to say that about the truckers.
Loaded on trains and shipped to the